Is it backwards? Oh,
Yes, Maharaj. Oh.
Should we start now?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, we are live on ISKCON Alachua YouTube as well as ISKCON Alachua Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, examem obeisance. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, vipasandavyacha, patitanam bhavanivyo, vaishnavevyo namo namaha. So thank you for inviting me to this program once again. And it looks like we're doing this weekly, which is just fantastic. And it just makes me think of Florida. It's not a place that I really want to be at the moment. 5 months from now, maybe. It's just very hot. Okay, so we are dealing with the topic of conflict, I think, right? Conflict, if I'm not mistaken. It's a good topic. And before we start, I guess it's somewhat related. I don't know if I read to you this poem. It's a very simple one. It's called Shoot for the Stars. Have you ever read that one yet? Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay. Shoot for the stars. Here it is. Shoot for the stars. Go beyond Mars. Bow and bend low. Humble we go. Attend to detail. Then we won't fail. Be that optimist, not that I'm pissed. Do not procrastinate, for virtue cannot wait. For all, have regard that, or just remain hard. To pull out a vice, take some advice. Make a new friend. Loneliness will end. Always move forward. Reverse has no reward. Without determination, expect termination. Life is oh so great. Step up to the plate. Hare Krishna. Those are just words about optimism. So as far as conflict goes, it's everywhere. It should not come as a surprise to us. We live in the world full of conflict and full of duality. Happiness and distress, winter and summer seasons come. Conflict is within and it's without. And an example of within is to do with Arjuna. He was very much concerned about what was going on inside of himself. And it also manifests externally. He says in chapter 1, text 28, Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up." Then 29, a little bit more about Arjuna's externals. He says, "My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hand, and my skin is burning." Okay, yeah, and here's another verse which expresses symptoms of having conflict within. Text 30, I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself, and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. So here he's talking about his the body language that he's going through, and which is an external expression of internal strife. So we should see that conflict happens for all of us. And conflict also happens from the source of without. The Pandavas and the Kauravas, they were having it out with each other. They're coming from this same strain, same family, but they didn't see eye to eye. So the point is that it happens within and without. And going back to the point of within, we have the warring mind. The mind always likes to declare war somehow or other. And we have to see these wars going on. Yes, no, yes, no, yes. Sankalpa and Vikalpa. So what to do about these things? With the conflict within, the solution for Arjuna was to know himself more, to understand what his actual position was. And that secondary is your bodily conditions, physical conditions, and primary is your spiritual situation, spiritual directions. When it comes to conflict without, the solution is stick to your dharma. That's why the conflict was there in the beginning. Duryodhana didn't have much concern for conflict, or let's say dharma. It had to be his dharma and not Krishna's dharma. His world and not Krishna's world. His guidelines, rules and regulations, and not Krishna's conditions. So that was his problem. But Arjuna and the Pandavas, they represented Dharma, especially their eldest brother, Yudhishthira. He was the emblem of truthfulness, righteousness, and virtue. And he always held on to that. Dharma, we have to remember, Dharma means to follow your regulated life and to act as you're obliged to do. It gives you tremendous power and longevity. And when you follow adharma and you break all your values and all your principles, it means you enter into the zone of powerlessness. It is, adharma is fickle and it will blow your house down. So the big bad story of the big bad wolf, blow your house down. So Krishna was saying to Arjuna about duty. You have to stick to your dharma. And if you don't, you'll be ridiculed. And that creates an even greater inner conflict. You know, when people are not honoring you properly, and when you're not sticking to your guns, so to speak. And so we have some nice examples of this also in the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, Krishna is talking about if you don't follow duty or dharma, then people will scorn you. They will laugh at you. They will make fun of you. And in the end, he says that dishonor is worse than death. Let's look at some of the verses. Chapter 2, text 33. And again, I would just want to emphasize that if you stick to your principles and your values, you'll always be protected. You may go through a rough ride. The plane will fly through turbulence. And it'll go through dark clouds and heavy currents. But if the pilot is on track, in practically most cases, it will be a safe journey in the end. You just have to live through turbulence. and that is called tolerance. Tolerance and turbulence, they sound the same. So tolerate the turbulence, and there will be happiness in the end. So in text number 33, chapter 2, if, however, you do not perform this religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. So we're talking about being dishonored and doing it self-imposed. Then 34, people will always speak of your infamy. This is again Krishna speaking. And for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. Text 35, the great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. And there's another verse, a whole string of verses that stays on this topic about being dishonored and creating your own inner conflict. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? So then finally, text 37, O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Also, chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, called Transcendental Knowledge, or what we refer to as Jnana Yoga, says something similar. Krishna says, armed with yoga, stand and fight. So yoga here refers to the yoga of knowledge, of truth, which slashes doubt. So the enemy that we have within, that we struggle with all the time is, or most times, it's with doubt. Shall I or shall I not? Whenever we have to make decisions, we should take a little time to filter them through the gunas, goodness, passion, or ignorance. We should be thinking, this step that I'm taking forward, is it going, or this, what words I'm going to express, will it be in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? Naturally, we should choose the mode of goodness, right? And so it's good to use that kind of testing ground in order to help us to avoid conflict. So even though we try to avoid difficulties, oftentimes with people, they'll still come anyways. They'll come of their own accord. But we have to try our best to be proactive and try to avoid conflict, which comes of its own accord. I've got some interesting verses that I chose. We have to always ride on doing what's right. So here's a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. He said, the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who will remain neutral in times of great moral conflict. So we know that Martin Luther King Jr., he was a great admirer of Gandhi, and Gandhi was quite forward in what had to be done. He had to be done. He did these fasts, he did these marches, he went on strike, and it was all kind of like positive, nonviolent approaches, something like what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did 500 years ago, nonviolent civil disobedience march against the Chand Kazi. Here's something about conflict with someone. And it comes from the author William James. He said, whenever you're in conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging your reputation and deepening it. That factor is attitude. If you have a nice attitude, you'll get through your problems. You know, where there is attitude, there will be platitude. So, if we have a healthy, positive spirit about everything, usually you come through shining. And, there's always conflicts equals opportunities. And opportunities are nothing other than lessons. That's what they are. I've got a real nice quote here from Karen Horney. Here it is. Why is it so utterly beneficial, the thought that someone besides myself knows me? So you can interpret that in different ways. It's very nice. Sometimes when we're agitated about something, someone has pointed out a flaw in us, and we take offense. But maybe we shouldn't take offense. Maybe we should appreciate that person knows something about me that I also know about myself. But it's being brought out outwardly, and I don't want it to happen that way. I would like to solve things myself, but usually we don't. Usually we need to take problems, get them off our chest, lay everything out on the table, and have a nice chit chat. Just like with the with the lives matters issue, people should just come together and talk it over, and maybe some wisdom will flow, like a nice waterfalls. Everyone's seen nice waterfalls. In Florida, you don't have too many, right? It's kind of flat. It's kind of flat. But you do have springs.
Yes.
You do have the springs, and they flow really well. Yeah. So we want wisdom to flow. And if we familiarize ourselves with the lessons in the Bhagavad Gita and constantly, daily, on a daily basis, look at them, those lessons, then it's like the creek of cool and clean water will always be flowing next to us. Can you hear me okay still?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So someone, Gopal's trying to tickle his mom. Gopal. All right. Okay, so also we have something called Chaitya Guru. Chaitya Guru is another word for the Guru within, the observer within, also known as Paramatma, or the Super Soul. We should be welcoming in the workings of the Super Soul. He knows everything about us. He's neutrally situated, and he knows everything inside, outside, up, down, all around, in the 10 directions. Knows everything about us. There's nothing, no secret we can keep from him, because wherever we go, he goes. Okay? And when we switch off the light, he's able to see. We can't see, but he can. Let us not kid ourselves. He knows what's going on. And let's say sometimes there's conflict created by people outside. There's been rumors said about us, not nice. And what do we do about that? Well, it's comforting to know that Paramatma is with you. And if you stick to your Dharma, somehow or other, he'll see you through it all. I mean, Krishna he took a lot of flack from people. One of his sons, Samba, took off and kidnapped Lakshmana, the daughter of Duryodhana. And this happened during a Swayamvara. And at a Swayamvara wedding ceremony, the princess chooses her husband. But Samba fell in love with her, and he decided, I'm gonna do a test run here. So he kidnapped her, and she wasn't even interested in it. But he kidnapped her, and he got away from it. And all the members of the Kudur dynasty were in awe. How could this be? This is an insult. And then already there was conflict between Krishna's family and Duryodhana's family. So, talk about our kids messing up the situation sometimes. So Samba was tested, and he went into conflict, physical conflict, with the Kauravas. There was Duryodhana and others, and Bhishma was also opposed to this particular kidnapping. And so what transpired was everyone got to admire Samba. So, wow, he is great on the battlefield. Look at him go. He is, putting us to shame. So at one point they did attack him, like something like what you read about in the Mahabharata in regards to Abhimanyu, kind of similar kind of thing. So he got arrested, and then Balaram came in, the uncle, and they were happy that he was going to come in to try to have a chit chat with everybody. So they did, and finally things were somewhat resolved. And in the end, the two couple, they got to like each other, and they got married. It was like a happy ending story that everybody likes. But my point is that Krishna has done things that has aggravated people, and Krishna's family members have done things that have stirred up people in a similar way. And this is certainly part of his drama. Now, when it comes to Krishna, he can sort out his own inner conflicts. We don't have that same power, but we do have the power to be tolerant, to let's say, to resist losing our temper, or if it means you have to fight, then fight with a cool head, and just carry on. And this is what is required for conflict. The COVID-19 is a conflict. I don't know if he's a he or she. I would like to use the political correctness on this, the PC, whatever it is. But COVID has created a conflict. Some people see this virus as a blessing. Some people see it as a curse. And then there's a third group that sees both blessing and a curse. Both. And perhaps that middle road is the best way to go. If it wasn't COVID-19, there would be another virus that takes people down. And of course, it's not a nice situation. But we have to realize that as long as we're in this world, there's going to be some conflict within ourselves, and conflict with man to man, conflict with man to animal, against nature, and so on and so forth. So it's just going to be there, So be ready and be prepared to armed with yoga, armed with your weaponry, stand and fight. And for the COVID, I don't know if you've been given some recipes, but there are good things that are out there that you can do to protect yourself. The special teas of ginger and turmeric and black salt and some cinnamon, cloves. These are all things that help to combat COVID-19. So we have to find the vaccine, you know. And of course, somebody can say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is the ultimate vaccine. There's no doubt about that. But there are other physical things that we can do to protect ourselves from the COVID. It can happen for us. So I believe that when we look at the situation with Krishna, and there was a story of this Yamataka jewel, people were making all kinds of rumors about him. And that's always a little bit hard to bear. Oh, my Krishna, people are talking against my hero, you know. But he took it like the victor and not a victim so much. He fought these battles and he got through it all. And of course, again, it's part of his Leela. So William Shakespeare said the whole world's a stage. So that means that we're going to be having some drama in our life. There is going to be some challenges. You know? And so we should not be naive. They will come, they are coming, and they always did come. So that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the world, as it is. So Krishna accepted ridicule. He accepted infamy many times. You read the 10th canto so many times. He accepted criticism, that he was the target of ridicule. And again, it's part of his Leela. It's all arranged in such a way that in the end, he does become a hero. So, you know, we have inflicted conflict that comes our way in the material world. But we should not give in to adharma and all the negative things. We should submit and resort to him, to Krishna. Krishna can solve his own conflict problems, but it's sometimes hard for us to do. Sometimes it requires a third-party person. Well, that third-party person is Krishna within the heart. Sometimes Krishna is represented through people when they see that you're in trouble. Most people love to help out and make your life easier. I think the average person really is like that. We're there to help each other. You know, when I walked across America, we were in the state of Utah, maybe it was Utah. So there was on the off of Highway 80, I believe it was, or Highway 50, I can't quite remember. There was like a rest stop and a museum, and we always hear about the jails of the Wild West. How people were slinging guns and always after each other, you know. And you have the classic, iconic scene of a guy walking into a saloon through the swinging doors, and then everyone looks at him, and he's a stranger, and someone in the bar says, "Hey, did you notice someone out here, a stranger?" So, "Yeah, I did. He really stinks." And then the guy with the stranger pulls out his holster and gives a good shot. And maybe there's a brawl before that. And so people think this is the Wild Wild West, that it was all about guns and shooting each other, fighting the native people. Well, there was a bit of that. It's a fact that I walked by the stations of the famous Pony Express, and we would read the historic plaques. And yeah, someone was delivering mail, and sometimes a group of native folks on horseback would chase after the delivery man. So anyways, that went on. Now, what's important, why I bring up this story, is that we get this idea that people were always shooting each other. The truth of the matter is, especially when people went with chuck wagons across the Wild West, they needed to help each other. They could not afford to have conflict. They could not afford to disagree. or if it was some disagreement, it was on a minimal scale, you know. So they realized that they needed each other in case the wagon breaks, the wheel pulls off, and at least you have two guys pulling it together and making it work and run again. And when it came to cooking, you had to cook for the group of people. So you needed each other. Let's say somebody falls sick on the journey. Well, there's somebody in the group that knows a little bit about medicine, and they'll offer help. So instead of people shooting each other like we see in the movies, it was quite the opposite. People were there to nurture each other and care for each other. Yeah, so anyways, what you get in the news and the media and through movies is not always the truth. Yeah. How are we doing for time?
We are good, Maharaj. It's only 5:30.
Okay, it's 5:30. Yeah. And so I think that those are some things to consider, that we definitely need each other. We need to resort to the human resource, and as well as the spiritual resource. Both have to come into play. Both have to be there in our lives. The practical solutions and also the spiritual solutions to practical problems. Ultimately, we just have to admit, I'm a spiritual being. I am not this body. And this is what really matters in the end. If something matters, you know, we can say it's our understanding of ourselves, knowing ourselves more, and that we should not so easily be shaken and agitated by the slight provocation. And usually that's what it is. Many of us want to make a drama out of just a little skirmish, and that doesn't help the situation. You know, we most of our issues are just petty. Just like, if I can quote to you, Henry David Thoreau. In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial. So this world is just really small-minded. People are generally quite small-minded. But there's a lot of good people out there too, and they're ready and willing to help when it calls for it. They are really ready and willing to do that. People believe in human care and responding to the world of action, and not just being a bystander. But they do come forward to offer to help. Just like, if you ever been on a lonely road in the middle of the night and you're driving, and then you get a flat tire. Oh my God. Yeah, that's been there, right? And then this is how I'm going to deal with this. It's getting cold, the bugs are biting. That's in the case that it's hot. And no one's stopping. It just makes it so much more pleasant when someone stops and says, hey, can I help you? Are you okay? You know, that neighborly, let's say, response that was more prominent not so long ago. Not so long ago. Still, I think people are willing to help, and that the human resource is very, very important to have in our lives. So I was just thinking, if anybody has any questions or comments at this point, it would be really nice to hear about your experiences in dealing with conflict and conflict resolution. And while you do that, I'm just going to go with something to quench my thirst. Okay? Actually, it's that special tea for COVID-19.
Oh, you should.
All right. I'm just thirsty.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hey,
Yes.
Hare Krishna Mandala, 1 minute, give him a minute. He'll be back.
Less than a minute.
That was a jiffy, Maharaj.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments you want to make?
Well, comment, reflection / question. So we understand that there's the three kleshas, the one's own mind, other living entities, and natural occurrences. And kind of during this COVID time, we've got hit by another living entity, just a small bacteria. But through that experience, I guess it's actually brought to light many of the conflicts and insight to where what we have to work on as a society at large, this racism, unfair workforce, so many other things. So in that way is, conflicts has kind of a bad connotation on it, that it's always bad, but can there be, I guess, good conflicts as well? And
Yeah, I feel that people are not over the this recent racist thing, but I feel people lack a little bit of guts, and they should understand that the world isn't fair. It seems not to be. It seems that there will always be some level of injustice, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't fight for justice. We should, for doing what's right. But first of all, there should be some standard for justice. And if people don't resort to scripture, and it's all just kind of like based on where people are at sociologically at this current time, it doesn't set a very good benchmark. What's better is if we resort to Shastra and follow codes, and for all the different people, the four spiritual or the social orders of life, there's all different codes to follow, but you should follow them. And then at least there's some protection there. But now there's so many different standards, keeps changing all the time, and there doesn't seem to be any way of regulating that. Anyways, how can you talk to the clouds in the sky and say, hey, why are you so cold today? Come on, man, that's not fair. Or how can you reason with Vayu, the wind god? Say you're in the middle of Arkansas and those kind of tornadoes come whipping through. Hey man, what are you doing? This is not fair. I just built my barn and just took it down. You see, like there's a lot of things. We should stop fighting. We should see conflicts more as opportunities to help ourselves and help others. I find it's a better approach that way, instead of going down the entitlement laneway. I really feel that people need to be a little more tough and take on some, an extra layer of skin, tough skin, and people to bear the brunt a little bit. I think it goes really overboard. What's going on oftentimes today, with so many circumstances, it is it's pretty extreme. It's very passionate, and people don't allow for wisdom to seep in. They seem to resist that. Like I'm just talking about the simple fact that, hey, I'm a spiritual being, and so are you. Why are we fighting? We're part of the same family. We're all members of the family of the universe. So I think we need to look more at the laws of goodness, what is sattvic, and try to abide by those, instead of just always coming up with incredible new standards and changing the books all the time. That's just what I like to offer. I think if we resort to Krishna in the end, the good will cancel out the evil, and so on and so forth. It will happen.
Jai, thank you so much, Maharaj. And I guess along those lines, so at least on an individual scale, to actually become free from conflict, we should develop this transcendental knowledge, this perspective of Krishna, and help that helps us go beyond the body. So then these conflicts of I'm this skin color, even though there may be some people that are just in the mode of ignorance that are very won't be able to go beyond that threshold. How may we deal with them, or how can we help those types of people rise beyond their small perspective of their conflicting ideas of what is right, who is the superior race? Is that just based on the false ego, or
is it based on the false ego? Yeah, I mean, I think that the best way to look at these things is that all races have strengths and weaknesses. If there's one race that has it all, then we can call them Bhagawan. But that's not the case. We should learn to complement each other, and not compete with each other so much. When you complement, then there's a dance. And when you compete, it's very easy to then have a battle. So better to dance on the floor, better to make it a nice flow, make a waltz out of the world.
Jai.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. This is Ananda Sheshadas.
Yes, Baruch.
During conflict resolution, is there a risk of committing Vaishnava Aparadh?
Is there? I heard Vaishnava
Is
Aparadh.
there a risk of committing Vaishnava Aparadh during conflict resolution?
Is there a conflict resolution for Vaishnava?
No, he said,
Yeah.
he
Is there
said
a risk?
when the conflict resolution is happening, is there a place to commit Vaishnava Aparadh?
Well, if I understand you rightly, you're saying if someone commits a Vaishnava Aparadh, is there a conflict resolution for it? Is that what you're saying? Is there a way to resolve it?
The other way around. While we are doing the conflict
Is there
resolution,
a risk of committing Vaishnava Aparadh?
Yeah.
Is there a risk of committing Vaishnava Aparadh?
Is there a risk?
yes.
Yes, sure. Yeah, we do things all the time unknowingly. We offend without, people generally have good intents and purposes, but it just so happens that we do things unknowingly. Just like we are walking and we crush ants, and we didn't know we crushed ants. So we make all kinds of mistakes all of the time. But if we do things deliberately, you can say it's first degree, and then the second degree, third degree. So we do things unknowingly because we're not perfect. That's all. And it's just like you're driving down the road very innocently, going shopping at Gainesville. And then, you kind of, go into the next lane, and there's somebody happens to be quite close to you, and you couldn't see through the rear view mirror. The blind spot was a little bit too much, and you offended that person. You didn't mean to, but it happened nevertheless, even though you take precautions and you're a safe driver. So what are we to conclude from this is that in the material world, there will always be a tendency to make mistakes, to make the wrong decisions, and to irritate somebody when it wasn't your call or intention at all. Yeah, so, but it's very precarious. It's very, moving through this world is like walking on eggshells. The egg can crack any day.
So there is a person by name Kunjari is asking a question. They type.
Yes.
If you can read the chat over there, or do you want me to read the
Can you-
question over here?
Sure, can you put it up again, if you don't mind?
It's there on the chat in the. If
I saw some written thing earlier. And I don't see it now.
okay,
And I was trying to read it, but another question came to me.
says, if you have had conflicts with devotees, where then has been an agreement to agree to disagree? And then what is the best process to not make offenses towards that devotee in one's mind?
Okay, so we're talking about you had a conflict with someone and you agreed to disagree, correct?
Kunjari, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You agreed to disagree and then? Is that it? Is that the statement?
What
But
is-
you still are making offenses towards that devotee in your mind.
Yeah.
What is the best way to remove that, or what's the best process to stop doing that?
Okay, a way to not offend them. I find sometimes what happens is to get close to them and then do some service for them as a way to warm them up. And you know, if you're good-hearted, you'll pick up on some of their good energies and you'll see some of their good qualities, and you'll be less inclined to be.
We cannot hear you, Maharaj. We cannot hear you. Oh my God.
There's also something that we need to resort to, and that is prayer. Prayer is powerful. Krishna's in prayer, and he can help us sometimes through this warring mind that we have, and this tendency to to attack and to be offensive can be alleviated to some degree with Krishna's intervention. It's natural that we have an angst with someone or something. Again, we live in this world. But sometimes you have to resort to maybe a third person. That could be Krishna. That could be Chaitya Guru. That's just maybe a simplistic approach to it, but those are some ways that we can look at it. Either come close or just stay away. and if it's from afar, social distancing more than 6 feet, then we can definitely resort to Krishna and pray that within your heart you can come to terms with that tendency to attack, and also pray to Krishna to help you to see the good in someone. I remember once I was walking on a major highway and side where the devotees was on one of the marathon walks, and I was walking real fast, and he was walking very fast. Hey, Garuda, why are you walking so fast? So I was because I'm angry. So what are you angry about? Against someone. So, well, maybe it's a good idea just to slow down a little bit. So we slowed down. We walked at the same pace. And then I started picking up speeds some hours later on. And I realized that in my heart, I was angry about someone where I felt unjustly dealt with. And then I was reminded by my partner, Maharaj, you're going a little fast right now. Are you angry with someone? And say, maybe I am. And I guess we have to ask Krishna to calm us down and try to see the good in all. Krishna does that. He's trying to see the good. He looked at Putana. Oh, she's a beautiful woman. She's coming to me like a mom. And of course, she had not good intentions. And he just looked at her good side. He knew who she was. You know, he was very perceptive. Krishna's the most perceptive. And he felt that she's there, she can kill me if she wants. But I'll do something nice for her. I'll offer her a nice reward for her coming to me like a mom. So he did. So Krishna was just looking at the good side of that individual, Putana, and not the bad side. So we need to allow Krishna to take the lead on that and try to see there is goodness in all. There's no doubt about that. But we do live in an age where we feel we're always vulnerable. I'm the victim. Nobody likes me. You know, all this kind of just want to saying, shut up, you know. And just you know, grow up a little bit. You know? Again, develop the tough skin and move on. We don't have so much time for people, you know, being forlorn all the time. You just have to be a tough person. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, very much. Thank you, Maharaj.
We always have to remember that prayer is an important element in a devotee's life. It's one of the 9 processes. And it's not just reserved to Akrura or some of the champion prayer craftsmen. You know, it's for everyone to take advantage of. Yeah. It's very therapeutic. People should start prayer clubs and talk about, you know, the problems they went through and then offer prayer. They can pray for each other, pray for themselves, pray together, etc.
There is one in here in Alachua.
A prayer club. Great. Bravo. Bravo. That's the Vandanam group, right?
Yeah.
That's good to know. And would there be anything else that you folks want to share?
No, but thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, I think it's good enough for now. Thank you. And I'm going to have to go, but I appreciate everybody that's been on this call. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Just tell me what topic you want to deal with. Please don't give it to me 5 minutes before.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Swami.